There's a moment, just before a glass shatters, where everything holds its breath. That's what the room felt like. Music still played. Laughter still echoed off the high, expensive ceilings. But right there, standing by the champagne tower in her backless maroon dress, my wife tilted her head, smiled, and tucked a loose curl behind her ear in a way I hadn't seen since before our wedding. And the woman she was talking to? She looked like a secret you were never supposed to tell anyone. People say you can't feel betrayal unless someone touches you. They're wrong. My chest hurt like I'd been hit. But no one touched me. No one even saw me. I was just a ghost in a tuxedo, watching his wife fall in love with a stranger. Except the stranger wasn't a stranger. Not really. It had all started with a velvet envelope. 3 weeks ago, it slid under our door like a threat dressed as elegance. No return address. Just gold-embossed letters. Midwinter gala. Masks required. Valerie didn't question it. She just lit up like someone had handed her a second youth. "They're doing something special this year," she said, eyes dancing as she opened it. "No plus ones allowed. Just company people, anonymous mingling, a night of mystery and possibility." That word, possibility, it clung to her voice like perfume. I should have asked questions. I should have said no. But I just nodded like the idiot I always am when it comes to her. She said she'd be late. That it was girls only for the first half. I didn't like it, but I didn't fight. I just waited. Like always. What I didn't expect was the anonymous text that came to my phone at 9:17 p.m. that night. "She's here, and you need to see this for yourself." No number. No name. Just a location pin. And so I went. I wasn't invited. I wasn't on the guest list. I wasn't wearing a mask. But I walked in anyway. What I saw? Valerie. With her. A woman I hadn't seen in 4 years. A woman who should have been halfway across the country. A woman who ruined lives with a smile and walked away cleaner than snow. And they were laughing. God, they were laughing like old friends at a funeral. She didn't see me yet. Not then. That came later, when her hand brushed the woman's cheek and the mask slipped just enough for her to recognize the truth. And when it happened, it was like the entire room cracked down the middle. She stumbled back. Champagne fluted tilted. Her smile dropped like a guillotine. And I knew, whatever this night was supposed to be, it had just turned into something else entirely. Something I couldn't stop now, even if I wanted to. She dropped the glass. It didn't shatter, not like in the movies. It just tipped, bounced once off the velvet-covered table, and rolled to the floor with a hollow, ringing thud. Still, the sound sliced through the music like a whisper in a confession booth, just loud enough to make 3 people turn their heads. I wasn't one of them. I couldn't move. Valerie's eyes were locked on the woman in front of her. The one who hadn't stopped smiling. The one who tilted her head ever so slightly, as if amused that her identity had finally been noticed. There was no shame in her expression. No apology. Just calm, dangerous amusement. The kind you'd expect from someone watching a chess piece fall, not a marriage. Valerie took a step back. Her heel caught the hem of her dress, and for a split second, I thought she might fall. But she didn't. She steadied herself, one trembling hand on the edge of the table, the other still clutching her mask like it might protect her from the truth unraveling in front of her. She didn't see me yet. I was standing just beyond the reach of the chandeliers, caught in the shadows cast by a row of marble columns and dripping winter-themed decor. I hadn't even realized I was holding my breath until my vision started to narrow. I wasn't supposed to be here. This was her world, her scene, her rules. And yet, here I was, watching the woman I'd built my entire life around flirt with the exact person I had spent years trying to erase from our story. Her name was Darcy. You don't forget a name like that, especially when it's been burned into every fight, every night of silence, every moment of doubt you've ever had with the person you love. Darcy was a part of Valerie's past, a hidden chapter written in invisible ink. I only learned about her 2 years into our marriage, during a drunken argument where Valerie screamed that not everything is about you, Lowell, and then collapsed on the kitchen floor sobbing. I pieced it together afterward. They'd been inseparable in college. Not just best friends. Something else. Something deeper. Darcy had been her storm, her reckoning, her ruin. And now she was back. Right here. At a masquerade party. Smiling at my wife like nothing had ever happened. I saw Valerie's lips move. I couldn't hear what she said, but I didn't need to. The panic was all over her face. Her mask was off now, dangling at her side like a dead thing. Darcy didn't flinch. She leaned in, said something close to Valerie's ear, then turned and vanished into the crowd before I could get another look at her. And just like that, she was gone again, vanishing into velvet and candlelight. Valerie stood frozen. Then, slowly, she turned around and saw me. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stared, like she'd seen a ghost. I wanted to ask her why Darcy was here. I wanted to ask how long she'd known. I wanted to ask if she'd invited her, or if this whole night had been some sick nostalgia trip turned performance art. But all I said was, "You didn't tell me." She didn't reply. Her mouth opened, closed. Then she walked past me without a word, straight out of the ballroom, heels clicking like a metronome of guilt. I followed, out through the hall of mirrors, past the coat check where no one even looked up, into the cold night air where parked cars sat like sleeping beasts under amber streetlights. She stopped near the edge of the parking lot and finally turned to face me. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her lipstick was gone. She looked like someone who'd just lost a game she didn't know she was playing. "She wasn't supposed to be here," she whispered. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something in her voice made my stomach twist. Not fear, not shame, longing. And that terrified me more than anything else. The car ride home was dead silent. No music, no talking, just the low hum of the engine and the occasional cough of the heater trying to warm two people who weren't speaking to each other. Valerie sat with her head against the window, arms crossed, her reflection a blurred double in the glass. I drove slower than usual, not because of the weather, but because I wasn't sure what we were driving toward, or away from. Halfway through the trip, I glanced over and caught her wiping the corner of her eye. She didn't want me to see. She never did. Valerie cried like it was a failure. She used to be soft, years ago, when we'd sit on the floor eating takeout and dreaming about places we'd never afford to visit. She used to lean on me. But somewhere along the way, she stopped leaning. And I, in turn, stopped asking. We didn't speak until we got inside the house. She went upstairs without saying a word, her heels clacking against the hardwood in a staccato rhythm I wanted to hate. I stood in the entryway for a minute, coat still on, heart pounding like I'd sprinted home instead of driven. I thought about following her, confronting her, demanding answers while the night was still hot and bleeding. But I didn't. Instead, I walked into the kitchen, sat at the table, and stared at the untouched leftovers we had planned to eat when we got back. Pasta, red wine, a small, stupid cake from the local bakery that said "to new seasons" in cursive icing. I let out a breath that felt like it had been sitting in my chest since college. That night, we slept in the same bed, but not together. She faced the wall. I faced the ceiling. And somewhere around 4 a.m., I heard her whisper something under her breath, so quiet I almost thought I imagined it. Why was she there? But it wasn't a question. It was dread. The next morning came with no apology. No explanation. Just coffee and silence. Valerie had already dressed for work when I came downstairs. Hair perfect. Makeup hiding the storm from the night before. She looked like a stranger cosplaying as my wife. "I have meetings," she said, sipping from a travel mug. "So that's it." She paused. "What do you want me to say, Lowell?" "I want you to say you didn't invite her." "I didn't." "Then how did she get there?" Valerie looked at me for a long time. Really looked at me. And for a moment, I thought I saw it. That flicker of guilt, or fear, or something close to honesty. But instead, she said, "I don't know." That was the first lie. Maybe not the first ever, but the first one I couldn't ignore. I almost let it go. Almost. But instead, I asked the question I'd been holding back since the night before. "Did something ever happen between you two that you never told me?" Valerie blinked, the mug halfway to her lips. "What kind of something?" "You know what kind." She didn't answer right away. Then she gave me a look I couldn't read, shrugged her coat on, and left. No kiss. No goodbye. Just the sound of the door clicking shut behind her. And I was alone again. Just me and the ghosts in this house we pretended was a home. The thing is, I knew where to look. I knew how to find digital trails, deleted emails, hidden folders, backups that most people forget exist. It's what I do for a living, after all. I'm the guy you call when your files go missing. I find things. That afternoon, I opened her old cloud drive. And within 10 minutes, I found a folder called Halcyon. That was the name of the lake house she used to visit every July during college. The one she never wanted me to see. The one she told me was just a group trip with friends. I never pushed because I trusted her. Inside were photos. Dozens of them. All dated the summer before she met me. Valerie and Darcy. Swimming. Drinking. Wrapped in blankets on the dock under stars. And in one, only one, they were kissing. It wasn't some party dare. It wasn't a joke. It was love. Messy, unspoken, buried love. And it terrified me because it looked more real than any picture we'd ever taken together. The timestamp was July 19th. I checked my calendar archive. That was the week her uncle had supposedly been in the hospital. The week she cried to me on the phone and said she couldn't talk because family came first. I wanted to smash the screen. Instead, I copied everything. Not out of revenge, not out of spite, but because part of me still needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind. That the way I felt last night, that silent scream watching her flirt with a ghost from her past, wasn't just paranoia. And now I had it. But the worst part wasn't the kiss. It was the fact that the most recent file in the folder had been uploaded 2 weeks ago. A new photo. Darcy, smiling, holding a drink, and wearing a company lanyard with Valerie's firm logo. She didn't just come back. She was let in. By someone. Maybe not Valerie, but someone who wanted her close again. And now, she was inside everything. My wife's workplace. Our lives. Our story. And I had no idea what she wanted. Yet, 2 days passed. No more texts. No more late-night whispers. No confessions over wine or breakdowns in the bathroom. Valerie went to work like nothing had happened. She wore that same navy trench coat she always did when she wanted to look like she had control. The kind of coat that said, I handle things. And maybe she did. Maybe she was just handling me now, too. I didn't tell her I knew about the photo, or the folder, or the fact that I'd seen Darcy's name in an internal memo on her company's shared drive. She didn't know I had access. That was one of the rules we'd set early in our relationship, privacy matters. It wasn't about hiding things, she said. It was about maintaining identity. I had agreed, like I always did. But now, with everything unraveling, I realized those boundaries were built less on trust and more on avoidance. Still, I said nothing. I watched. I waited. I let the silence grow teeth. On the third day, she came home unusually late. No call. No message. She walked in around 11 p.m. smelling like citrus and champagne, not our kind, either. The kind that comes from a rooftop bar where no one drinks under $50. You stayed late. I asked, not even trying to sound casual. Client dinner, she said, hanging up her coat without turning around. Spontaneous. I didn't have time to text. A lie. She always texts. Even when she forgets milk. Even when she's 5 minutes late. Valerie doesn't do spontaneous. Not unless she's been pulled into someone else's gravity. I leaned against the counter. You're working with Darcy now, aren't you? That made her pause. She turned slowly, eyes narrowing just slightly. Excuse me. I saw the internal org memo. She's consulting under your division. She didn't ask how I knew. That's when I knew she was guilty. She's temporary, Valerie said finally. My boss brought her in through another contact. I didn't even know until she showed up. That's convenient. It's the truth. Then why didn't you tell me? She folded her arms and looked at me like I was some fragile thing she didn't have time to carry anymore. Because I knew how you'd react. You mean with questions? With concern? With some basic expectation of honesty? With jealousy, Lowell. The way she said it, flat, exhausted, practiced, like she'd rehearsed it in the car. I didn't respond. What was I supposed to say? That I wasn't jealous? That I wasn't imagining the way she leaned toward Darcy at the party, laughing like she used to when we first met? That I hadn't seen the way her hands trembled afterward, not from fear, but from memory? Instead, I asked something else. Something stupid. Did you ever stop thinking about her? Valerie looked at me for a long time. And when she finally answered, she didn't lie. No, she said softly. But that doesn't mean I want her back. That sentence sat in the air like smoke. It didn't vanish. It just hung there, curling into everything. I went upstairs. She stayed downstairs. We didn't talk again until the weekend. Saturday morning came, and with it, a delivery. Not for me. For her. A box, wrapped in matte black paper, no return address. I found it on the porch and brought it inside. Valerie was still in bed, scrolling through her phone, her face lit by that cold blue glow of digital escape. You expecting something? I asked, holding up the box. She blinked. No. But when she took it, her hands trembled just a little. She didn't open it right away. She just set it on the coffee table and stared at it like it might hiss or bite. An hour passed. We pretended to watch a documentary. She didn't touch her tea. I didn't stop watching her. Finally, she said, "Will you be mad if I open it alone?" That told me everything. I stood. "I'm going for a walk. I'll be here." I didn't look back. I didn't ask what was inside. I didn't need to. I already knew it wasn't for me. And I was starting to wonder if the woman I married was still here, or if she'd been quietly replaced by someone I didn't recognize. Because whoever she was now, she kept looking over her shoulder like something was following her. Or someone. And I had a feeling that whatever was inside that box would pull the last thread holding this thing together. I didn't make it far on that walk. I circled the neighborhood twice, checked my phone 8 times, and stood under the same street lamp for 15 minutes watching the condensation on my breath curl into the cold morning air like cigarette smoke. I couldn't stop thinking about the box. What was in it? Who sent it? Why Valerie had flinched when she touched it, like it recognized her. When I finally came back inside, the house smelled like old paper. I can't explain it. Not food, not perfume, not candles, just this dry, acidic smell that reminded me of forgotten library books and old photo albums. Valerie wasn't in the living room anymore. The box was gone from the table. I didn't call out to her. Something told me to move quietly. I walked upstairs. She was in the bathroom with the door half closed. I could see the reflection of her back in the mirror. She was holding something in both hands, unmoving, her shoulders tense. I waited until she noticed me behind her. When she did, she didn't jump or scream. She just slowly turned and showed me what she was holding. A photograph. It was black and white, clearly old, worn around the corners like someone had folded it again and again, as if trying to keep it hidden inside a wallet, a book, a memory. In the photo, 2 women on a train platform, arms wrapped around each other, their heads pressed together. One of them was unmistakably Valerie, maybe 10 years younger. The other, her face was burned out. I don't mean metaphorically. I mean actually burned out. Someone had scratched her face out with something sharp and rough. Nails maybe. A key. I didn't ask who it was. I didn't need to. There was only one person it could be. Darcy sent this? I asked. Valerie nodded once. There was a note? No, she said. There was something else. She reached into the drawer beneath the sink and pulled out a small white envelope. She handed it to me like it was a confession, like I was a priest, and she couldn't hold it anymore. I opened it. It was blank. No handwriting. No markings. Just a folded piece of thick, creamy stationery paper with absolutely nothing on it. But when I held it up to the light, something shimmered across the fibers. Faint, invisible ink. I grabbed a lighter from the cabinet, flicked it on, and slowly hovered the flame near the paper, just like they do in movies. And it worked. One sentence appeared in faded charcoal gray letters. She lied to both of us. D. That was all. I looked at Valerie, expecting anger. Denial. Something. But she was pale. Her eyes weren't tearful. They were hollow. She's trying to pull me back, she said quietly. But not the way you think. Not for romance. Not even for revenge. Then what? She wants the truth to rot everything I've built. I waited for more. But she didn't explain. She walked out of the bathroom, left the photo on the counter, and went downstairs. I picked up the picture again. And this time, I noticed something in the background. A sign, slightly out of focus behind the 2 women. It wasn't in English. Cyrillic letters. Russian maybe. Or Ukrainian. I wasn't sure. We'd never talked about her going abroad. That was the first time I realized there were entire years of Valerie's life I knew absolutely nothing about. And Darcy? She'd been there for them. I followed her down to the kitchen. She was standing at the window, arms crossed, watching the backyard like she was waiting for someone to emerge from the trees. I sat at the table and placed the photo in front of me. You need to tell me the whole story, I said. From the beginning. No edits. No omitting things because you think I can't handle it. She didn't turn around, but she spoke. It wasn't just a relationship. Darcy and we got involved in something. What do you mean, something? It started small. She had friends. A circle. They were into unorthodox ideas. Like what? Valerie exhaled slowly. Psychological experiments. Sensory deprivation. Memory tampering. Group manipulation dynamics. They called it research. I called it theater. But I stayed. Because I loved her. And I thought it made me more interesting. I felt cold. Are you saying you were in a cult? No. Not exactly. It wasn't religious. It was worse. It was scientific. Just fringe enough to be dismissed. Just organized enough to be dangerous. I stared at her. And you never thought to mention this? Not once, in all our years together? I buried it. I wanted to believe it wasn't real, that it was just a phase. Darcy left. I thought she disappeared. I moved on. You got married. She finally turned to face me. I didn't think she'd come back. The silence between us was absolute. Then, the doorbell rang. Once. Sharp. Clean. I stood. She stood too. We didn't speak. I opened the door. And no one was there. Just a small, rectangular package on the mat. Wrapped in red twine. No name. No address. No explanation. I bent down, picked it up, and turned it in my hands. It was heavier than I expected. Inside the twine was a card. No envelope. No wax seal. Just a thin cream square with delicate handwriting. This one didn't need heat. Only one of you remembers it right. Valerie backed up. I saw her knees tremble. Lowell, she whispered. Don't open that yet. Not until I tell you what happened on the train platform. My throat tightened. What train platform? Her voice cracked. The day I left her. The day I thought she died. She told me not to speak. Just listen, Valerie said, her hand trembling slightly as it rested on the edge of the counter. If I stop, don't interrupt. If I hesitate, don't press me. You wanted the truth. You don't get to pick the pieces. I nodded, slowly, carefully, like the wrong movement might send her falling apart again. She looked so far away, even though she was standing 10 feet from me. Like she wasn't here. Like she was already back there, in whatever memories she'd buried under years of curated smiles and practiced detachment. And when she finally spoke, her voice didn't sound like hers. It sounded younger. And afraid. We weren't supposed to be at the station that night. We'd been staying in a borrowed apartment in Kiev. It was a short-term flat that belonged to one of Darcy's, let's call him a sponsor. The kind of man who gave her things and didn't ask questions. We were 22, pretending we were artists. I was journaling obsessively. Darcy was painting people she barely knew and naming the pieces after childhood traumas. She smiled bitterly. We were so full of ourselves. Thought we were outside the system, as if that made us special. But it wasn't about rebellion. It was about running. Both of us. From different things. I didn't ask what she was running from. She continued. The night before, Darcy got a message on her private phone. She kept two, one for me and one for her other life. I didn't ask who sent it, but it scared her. She told me we had to leave by morning. No explanation. Just, we're not safe here anymore. We packed in 15 minutes. Didn't even return the keys to the landlord. She took a breath and looked at the floor. I could feel the weight building in her chest. A boulder that hadn't been touched in years, now cracking open. The station was almost empty when we arrived. Just a few workers sweeping. A vendor closing his kiosk. It was early, maybe 5:30 a.m. Still dark. The train wasn't coming for another 40 minutes. We were alone on the platform. I could hear it. The concrete platform. The distant sound of birds. The metallic hush of something waiting beneath the surface. She was different that morning. Quiet. Focused. I thought she was scared, but I was wrong. She was composed. Like she was waiting for something inevitable. I asked her what was going on. She said she'd explain on the train. But I couldn't wait. I pushed. I begged. I started crying. And then she broke. Valerie turned her eyes toward mine for the first time since she started speaking. She told me the man who'd lent us the flat wasn't just a sponsor. He was a collector. Of information. Of people. And Darcy had given him something. What kind of something? I asked carefully. A file. On me. I blinked. She told me she'd made a deal. That this man was part of something she didn't fully understand, but she owed him. And when I asked why the hell she would hand over anything about me, she said, because I needed to prove you existed. The room felt colder now. She said she loved me, but that no one believed I was real. That I was a kind of ghost in her life. That every time she described me, people thought I was something she'd invented. She said she needed me to be proven. Documented. So she made a file. My photos. My journals. My student records. She handed it all over. I couldn't speak. I didn't know how. And then, Valerie said, her voice cracking. She kissed me, walked to the edge of the platform, and said, "You'll never understand what I just saved you from." And she jumped. I stepped forward instinctively. Off the platform. Valerie nodded. Onto the tracks. But she didn't land the way she intended. She hit the lower ledge and rolled. Knocked herself out cold. I screamed. I ran down. I tried to pull her up. I was covered in blood. There was no one nearby to help. I kept shouting until finally someone came running with a flashlight. She closed her eyes. The conductor said the train had been delayed by 20 minutes. If it hadn't, she'd be dead. And what happened next? She was taken. Not by an ambulance. Not by the police. 2 men in suits came before anyone official arrived. Showed ID to the workers. Said she was part of a private medical study. Took her away in a black car. I never saw her again. Until now. Valerie finally fell silent. The only sound was the clock ticking softly above the stove. I didn't know what to say. I didn't even know what to think. Every part of the story sounded impossible. And yet, her voice had been unwavering. Her memory terrifyingly specific. She's not just back to mess with me, Valerie whispered, almost to herself. She's back because someone let her out. And now she wants to finish what she started. I reached for the red-wrapped package still sitting on the table between us. Do I open it? I asked. Valerie didn't answer. So I did. Inside was a leather-bound notebook. Black. Old. The spine cracked. The cover scuffed. No title. No branding. Just one small line, etched in gold on the inside of the front cover. Property of Valerie Thorne. Archive 1. I looked up at her. She was white as paper. I've never seen that before in my life, she whispered. The first page of the notebook crackled when I turned it, like paper that hadn't been touched in years. Not brittle, exactly, but dense. Heavy with time. It smelled like ash and old cedar, the kind of scent libraries trap in their oldest corners. Valerie stood frozen a few feet behind me, her arms crossed, jaw clenched tight enough that I thought she might break her own teeth. I laid the book flat on the kitchen table, careful not to smudge anything. Not that I knew what I was protecting, yet. The handwriting was neat. Sharp. Small. Almost clinical. A kind of cursive that bordered on calligraphy, but without any flourish or warmth. And it was unmistakably Valerie's. Except she swore it wasn't. I flipped to the first dated entry. March 3rd, 2014. I saw her again. She was waiting outside the cafe, like she always does when she wants me to follow. She never speaks first. That's one of the rules. I pretended not to see her this time. I pretended not to remember what she asked me to do last week. Valerie's breath hitched behind me. I wasn't even in the country in 2014. You're sure? I was in Seattle. Working retail. I didn't meet Darcy until 2015. I remember because it was the same year my brother got engaged. This, she gestured at the notebook, this didn't happen. But it kept happening, page after page. Entries like echoes from another life. The journal detailed meetings with Darcy. Always cryptic. Always coded. Never names, just her, or the woman with the coin, or the archivist. Every other entry referenced a list. No details about what was on it. Only that it had to be completed before extraction. There were sketches, too. Detailed renderings of faces I didn't recognize. Places. Doors. Symbols. One symbol appeared 5 times, always drawn with red pen. A circle with a line through the center, like an eye being crossed out. Some of the entries read like dreams. April 19th, 2014. She asked me if I remembered the elevator. I lied. I said it never happened. But I still wake up with the number 6 in my throat, like it's choking me from the inside. June 2nd, 2014. She made me forget someone again. I think I used to have a sister. But I can't remember her name. There's a photo I keep in the drawer that shows me standing next to someone who's no longer there. The space beside me is blank now. I turned to Valerie, and for the first time since the masquerade, she looked like she was truly afraid. I don't remember any of this, she said, barely audible. Not a single word. What about this handwriting? It looks like mine, but it's tighter. Controlled. Like someone trying to be me. I flipped further, and that's when I found it. A page torn from the center, rough edges still curled like teeth. But the page behind it was dated. And that date was tomorrow. October 20th, 2025. The entry was short. If he finds the book, it means she's breached the boundary again. Do not confront her directly. She'll twist it. She always does. Use the safe location. If he still trusts you, bring him there by midnight. Burn this page after reading. There was no location written, but there was something else. A small slip of black paper folded into the spine, not glued, not bound, just pressed tightly between the pages. I pulled it out carefully. On one side was a hand-drawn map. A winding road through a wooded area. No labels. No landmarks. Only a crude drawing of what looked like a cabin, marked with a red X. On the other side was a note, scribbled quickly in a messier, more frantic version of the same handwriting. Don't bring your phone. If you hear the bell, it's already too late. Valerie backed away from the table like it had caught fire. I didn't write that, she repeated, voice trembling. Lowell, I swear to you, this is not mine. I never owned a journal like this. I've never seen that map, and I don't know what the hell any of this means. But someone does, I said, more to myself than her. Someone wanted us to find this, and they wanted us to go somewhere. We stood there, frozen in the tension, the silence broken only by the distant hum of the refrigerator and the quiet creak of the house settling above us. Then Valerie said something that chilled me more than anything in that notebook. I think this is what she meant at the party. I looked up. Meant what? When she whispered in my ear, right before she walked away. What did she say? Valerie swallowed, then locked eyes with me. She said, you wrote it all down, and you still don't remember. The road to the cabin wasn't on any GPS. No signs. No service. Just the paper map pressed between my fingers and the thick hush of trees curling in around the car like a living tunnel. I didn't bring my phone. Valerie didn't speak the entire ride. She held the notebook in her lap like it might bite her if she let her guard down. I asked once more if she was sure. She just nodded, eyes locked on the woods ahead. We reached the turnoff an hour before midnight. A narrow dirt path swallowed by pine and fog, barely wide enough for the car. By the time we reached the clearing, my hands were stiff from gripping the wheel. The cabin was exactly as drawn. Small, weather-worn. A single lantern flickered on the porch. No car. No lights inside. Just a stillness that felt ancient, not abandoned. Like the building had been waiting. Valerie stepped out first. I followed. No bell. No sound. No Darcy. Only the cold. We pushed open the front door. It creaked, but not theatrically. It was the honest sound of old wood surrendering to time. Inside, one room, one desk, one chair. Nothing else. Not even dust. Just clean, quiet space. The desk held a single object, a small audio recorder. Cassette-based. Old. Beside it, a note. Play when ready. I looked at Valerie. She gave a tiny nod. I pressed play. The tape clicked, hissed, and then a voice filled the air. Not Darcy's. Valerie's. But younger. Sharper. More alive. If you're hearing this, it means I failed to forget. Or chose not to. Doesn't matter. What matters is that Darcy's not your enemy. Not really. She was trying to save me. Save us. But I wasn't ready. We looked at each other, neither of us breathing. There were people after us. Not shadowy men in suits. Real people. Professors. Researchers. Curious minds with too much funding. We agreed to disappear. To rewrite. To erase parts of ourselves so we'd never be tracked again. She took the fall. She let them fracture her memory so they'd stop looking for me. The tape crackled. But something went wrong. I forgot more than I was supposed to. I lost my past. My truth. I started over, and in doing so, I broke her. Darcy found me again. But I couldn't recognize her without the pain. And I chose peace. Another click. Then silence. Then a new voice. Older. Steady. Darcy. Lowell. Valerie. If you're hearing this, I'm gone. Not dead. Just letting go. I was angry. And hurt. And I wanted her to remember me. Even if it meant reopening the wound. But I see now that you're not my enemy either. You gave her something I never could, a quiet life. I won't take that away again. The notebook? Burn it. The photo? Let it fade. Memory is a wild thing. If it wants to return, it will. But if it wants to sleep, let it. Click. End of tape. I turned to Valerie. Her face was streaked with tears. But for the first time, she looked at peace. She didn't say anything. She just walked to the fireplace, opened the notebook, and fed it to the flame. The paper curled and blackened, page by page, until nothing was left but a gentle orange glow. We stood there in silence, not in fear or regret, but relief. Not everything needed to be solved. Some things just needed to be released. That night, we didn't drive home. We stayed in the cabin, wrapped in blankets. No words exchanged until morning. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like a ghost in my own marriage. I felt present, real, chosen. When we got home the next day, there were no more packages. No letters. No bells. Just a clean inbox and an open window letting sunlight spill onto the kitchen floor. Valerie held my hand while she made coffee. We didn't talk about Darcy again. We didn't need to. Some ghosts don't haunt. They guide. And when their story is finally heard, they leave.